Hello there. Today I'm going to talk about a what-if scenario. What would happen if colonists never reached the New Caprica? What if they never stopped running from Cylons? Is it an alternative way to break out of the cycle of destruction? How would an average Joe adapt to this nomad life? It would definitely cause some cultural and economic shifts in the fleet. And even more, today I might answer these questions. Or maybe not. Let's find out. The fall of the 12 colonies was not the end. It was the beginning of a much weirder story. In this timeline, the human survivors never found the brief illusion of safety on New Caprica. They did not stumble upon any world capable of sheltering them. The Cylons, relentless in their mission of annihilation, did not pause to experiment with governance or coexistence. They hunted the remnants of humanity with a cold, mechanical patience that could stretch across centuries. Fleet, exhausted but still able to fight, fled even deeper into the void. Each jump was a gamble, a hope that the Cylons would lose their trail, a prayer that the next star system might offer a fleeting chance to breathe, to repair, to live. But the Cylons had perfected their methods of pursuit. They tracked the fingerprints of faster-than-light jumps, intercepted radio transmissions, and seeded the surrounding sectors with patrols. Rest was a luxury. Staying in one place meant death. In these early years, the colonial government wrestled with two things: the dream of finding a new world to call home, and the scary fact that every attempt at settlement was a beacon to their hunters. Each habitable planet became a death trap. Fuel supplies dwindled. Agricultural ships were struggling with feeding tens of thousands of people. And morale was low because of the constant alarms of inbound Cylon raiders. Yet the fleet endured, bound together not by hope but by a shared understanding of their fracked-up situation. Survival itself had become their purpose. For the average citizen, life became a survival. The stars outside were no longer a promise of exploration. They were a hunting ground. And that's how the chase without end. A flight not of days or years, but of generations. The first decade would set the pattern. Brief pauses in empty systems, desperate scrambles for resources, and always the shadow of chrome and steel closing behind them. Humanity was no longer a people of planets. They became nomads. What began as an emergency exodus slowly transformed into something else, a way of life. The fleet that fled the 12 colonies was never designed to last forever. Ships built for commerce and tourism became homes, factories, hospitals, and schools. Corridors that once led to luxury cabins were converted into living quarters for families. The fleet was no longer just surviving. It was evolving. First generation of refugees carried memories of open skies, oceans, and cities. They missed it a lot, but as the years stretched on, a new generation was born in the glow of cold stars, raised not with tales of the colonies as a homeland, but as a legend. For them, the fleet was home, and planets were dangerous unknowns, a place where the evil robots waited for them. Survival demanded adaptation. Population control was no longer a political question but a necessity. Each new birth was weighed against oxygen reserves, food production, and cabin space. Families planned their futures like engineers, balancing love with logistics. Hydroponic bays spread like green arteries through the steel veins of the fleet, sustaining a fragile ecosystem that no longer relied on promises of fertile soil elsewhere. Society shifted with its environment. Governance hardened. Laws grew more rigid, and command structures blurred the line between military and civilian. Freedom of movement became regulated. Resources were rationed not by wealth, but by strategic value. Yet still, small pockets of culture persisted. Music, stories, and rituals adapted to life among the stars. Festivals were held in cargo bays, children painted star constellations on the ship's walls, and entire ships developed their own customs and dialects. Ships themselves began to change. Mining vessels became refineries, stripping asteroids to fuel the fleet's endless flight. Engineers learned to weld purpose onto every hull. A freighter could carry grain today, but tomorrow it might be fitted with flat cannons to fight off a raider swarm. Cylons were never really gone. Their presence was a shadow that shaped every decision, every law, every lullaby whispered in the dark. Yet, paradoxically, the pursuit forged a strange kind of unity. The fleet had no home to return to, no finish line to cross. The journey itself became their goal. Survival demanded more than endurance. It demanded strategy. The Cylons were relentless. Every FTL jump left a trace. Every communication risked interception. And every moment of hesitation brought the hunters closer. Instead of a single, vulnerable convoy, the fleet became a network of small groups, or even single ships. Groups of 5 or 10 ships would break off, each armed with enough supplies and jump data to survive alone for months or years. They would rendezvous only in prearranged systems. Their schedules kept secret, even from most of their own people. It was a gamble. Isolation meant safety for some, doom for others, and that's how the ghost ships were born. Vessels lost in the dark. Some were destroyed by Cylon patrols. Others vanished without a trace. Rumors spread of a ship drifting with lights still on, of a freighter whose passengers were found decades later, preserved in frozen stasis, their logs ending mid-sentence. As the long chase stretched beyond living memory, the fleet began to forget its own origins. The names of the 12 colonies became lines in a prayer rather than places on a map. History blurred into story, and story hardened into myth. Figures who had once issued orders or negotiated fuel rations became symbols larger than life. Admirals became the faces of endurance, presidents, the voices of unity, unnamed deckhands, martyrs of the Exodus. The reality of their flaws and failures faded. What endured were the archetypes: the leader who never wavered, the pilot who defied the odds, the ship that shielded the weak. Generations raised in the dark began to see themselves not as refugees, but as the people of the fleet. Centuries had passed since the fall of the 12 colonies, and the fleet had changed beyond recognition. The humans aboard it were no longer merely refugees. They were a spacefaring civilization, defined by motion, survival, and the rituals that bound them together. Planets had become myths, dangerous and unreliable, while the stars themselves had become home. So that's it. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.